Hey there folks, Kozzi here, drafting for Pick 1, Pack 1, and I'd like to throw out a warm welcome to a bunch of people from Reddit who've recently subscribed to the channel. It's great to have you guys here. I hope that what we create is useful and helpful for you, and most importantly, enjoyable. So let me know what you think in the comments and the like, so that I can continue to try and make this series of videos better and better for you. Let's get into the draft. Steward of the Past. Oh boy, pretty nice card. We were just talking about vanilla tests and quadrant tests in the new to draft video series, and this guy ticks a lot of those boxes. Being deadly basically means he can trade up for anything if I'm in trouble, or he becomes a real nightmare for my opponent to consider blocking. There are some other cards that tempt me. The shiny Warband Chieftain is really nice if you've known that you've committed to Stone Scar already. Amber Acolyte is useful for splashing. Likewise, if I'm looking at Combre, Awakened Student has the space to grow, and grow he will. But I don't think I can go past the rare in this pack. Steward of the Past seems like a very fortunate and nice first pick for me. Out of these, I think the cards that I'm tempted by, Copperhole Blessing's rubbish. Sporefolk I'm not a fan of. Windshaper is great in a very specific deck, but it's the kind of card I want to be opening up in pack 3 or something once I know that I have a whole army of flyers. So I think the most powerful cards here are either Feeding Time if we head into Feln, is Rebel Sharpshooter if we're going into Stone Scar, and Trickster's Cloak if we're going into a more aggressive Feln build. Out of these, the most objectively powerful card is definitely Feeding Time, but it has the second color requirement. Otherwise, I think in a vacuum, if that card went in the pack, I'd be looking at Rebel Sharpshooter. But by the same token, this is also asking for me to go into a second color requirement if we end up holding on to the Shadow. Although, you know, nothing's set in stone, we don't really know that, but ideally I'd like to be keeping this. And so if I'm trying to hold on to this, or if I'm keeping myself at least open to the possibility of it, I think I'd rather speculate on the Feeding Time now and see how it treats me for the rest of this draft. We have a banner for splashing. Grim Stranger is an interesting creature, so he's a bear. So a Feln 2/2, and having the Feln faction straight away is challenging when it's a 2/2, when it's a 2 casting card rather than a 4, because it means that ideally we want to get this on turn 2. And he has an unusual ability which is basically double damage to the defending player only. If it was double damage in general, this card would be phenomenal, but as is, a little bit skeptical. Outside of that, Blood Beetle is a good aggressive card if we want to be heading in that direction, but objectively the most powerful cards are probably Bright Mace and Amber Acolyte. Predator's Instinct is a useful piece of removal. So there's nothing that really runs with our plan so far. So my thought process is, this early in the draft I don't want to be taking a card that's quote-unquote on color, because I have no idea what on color actually is until we see some more cards and get some more evidence of what's happening with the person on my right. I could either think about looking into time here, and the reason why I could be tempted for that is because it will help me splash. So if I say end up with Time Shadow, it'll be a lot easier for me to splash into Feeding Time if I have a bunch of Amber Acolytes. Otherwise I could just go for the card that I think represents power. And I think we'll take the conservative pick for now. Now, this being open tells me that Shadow is definitely going to be available throughout this draft. I can't imagine there being 3 Shadow cards that is more powerful than Deathstrike for my opponents to pick. It's unfortunate that it's come in a pack where we also have Feeding Time, because we would have liked to have both. But as is, I think we'll take the Deathstrike and trust that our opponent on the right knows what they're doing and isn't just passing us stuff in general. Another piece of removal, Smuggler's Stash, which is a great top end for a particular archetype, but I think even though these cards are nice, this is even nicer still, so we'll grab our removal and see where we end up. Excavate is a card that I used to rate quite lowly, but I've slowly been coming around to acknowledging that it might be just playable. Welcome to the big leagues, mate. Basically, if you have a bomb in your deck and you want to get value out of that bomb again, I think that's the context where I'll be playing an Excavate. As is, I think Recogulate is a little weak. Unlock Potential is fine, but we don't look as though we're heading in that direction. If there's any color that we're moving into, it's probably blue. So I can either get the defensive guy, or the one-off spell. The spell has more of a blowout potential, but this is the more kind of meat and potatoes card. And with this much removal, if we get a bit of card draw, then we're going to be looking like a Feln control deck pretty quickly. So I think I'd rather just have the Roadblock for now. Back Alley Bouncer, Scaly Gruin, Armor Smith is okay if you know you've got a lot of weapons. And likewise, a Herald's Song is also okay, but better in a Elysian deck where you get many more cards with Echo. Back Alley Bouncer is not embarrassing. It's, you know, your stock standard welcome to the team begrudgingly card. Likewise with Scaly Gruin, this gives me the opportunity to shift into being a more aggressive deck should the cards open up for it. Should I happen to see some Lethrai Rangers and cards like that, whereas this is very much drawing my line in the sand and going, I'm going to say no for as long as possible and then take over the game. So I think I'd rather have my card that gives me a little bit of versatility and wait before really committing. Some good cards here for us. Jarl's Foskian is great value, works in both scenarios, pops Aegis, things like that. Levitate is a perfect cantripping card and allows us to get into the end zone. Scheme is a form of card selection, which is tolerable but not phenomenal. But no, this is the powerful card here. And we have a choice between getting a Fatty that, again, will be one of our last two cards that will make it into the deck, or a Violent Gust, which is a conditional removal spell. Ordinarily, I don't love removal spells that are this narrow. If you're a Magic player, I'll be calling it a sideboard card that you whack in your sideboard, and when you go up against an opponent that has applicable targets, you're laughing. But given that Eternal is a best of one format, I think there is an argument to be made for bringing in one or two of your sideboard cards that you can use and are very powerful in certain circumstances. 5 damage kills almost any flying unit. Yeah, I think we'll take that for the time being. Defensive creature is nice. Violent Gust makes me a little bit sad because it meant I had the opportunity to have taken the other creature instead, but I think we'll take the fixing just to give myself the opportunity to shift into red. See if we see any torches or anything else like that. Okay. Life Drinker, useful piece of equipment. Twilight Raptor, great creature if you're getting aggressive. Lethari Nightblade, great creature if you're getting aggressive. Particularly nice if you have that equipment that gives +1/+0 and gives you a 5/5 with Infiltrate. Aggressive creature, and then not a lot for anybody else other than Stand Together for whoever our Combre player is. I think our real choice is between the Twilight Raptor and the Life Drinker. Twilight Raptor helps me get my aggro on. Life Drinker is, well, it works in both scenarios because it does have lifesteal. If given the choice in this format as a whole, I'd rather be getting aggressive than defensive. The reason why is because I feel as though there are a lot more cards in this set in general that reward getting on your front foot and make life quite painful if you don't have the right answer at the right time, if you're just hoping to get defensive. It could be argued that Life Drinker excuse me, does both of that for me. But I really like the Raptors. I tell you what, I'm curious. This isn't me deferring my decision over to the website, but I'm very curious as to how they perceive these two cards. So let's take a look at the Twilight Raptor. So they see it as a B-, which I think is valid. It's efficiently costed and evasive. And what about the Life Drinker? They see it as a solid C, which I could respect. It's a single shot piece of removal most times, especially if you're not. You don't have Warcry, which these colors don't. Alrighty, let's go to the skies and see how it treats us. Grasping at Shadows is a play around rare that I've seen in some janky constructed decks. You can tell my attitude on them in general by that sentence alone. I think the Wyvark is helpful here. It's evasive, it's got killer, so it'll help me to continue to assert on a dealt with board state, where hopefully our premium removal has caused more problems first. So I think we'll take the Wyvark. Okay, so Stormcaller is an interesting one. She's a pinger, and that's useful for trading up on certain attacks in. We could just take another Wyvark. We'd be dropping the Warrior then, and that would be our top end. There are some better 5-drops that I could hope for. We could be taking the Frostkin, or we could be taking the Runic Revolver speculatively because it's an exceptionally good card, and hope that our Splash Red comes through. But I feel as though taking a splash card when we have three very solid options is too greedy. If there was nothing else in the pack, yeah, take it in a heartbeat. So what is this deck trying to do? It currently looks as though it's beginning to shift aggressive, although we don't have many low drop creatures at all. We have more than enough 4s right now, although if I was to take the Frostkin, it'd be a marginal upgrade over the Back Alley Bouncer. Otherwise, we could get our second 5. You know what? It is removal. Let's take it and see how it works out. I'll tell you what, our Combre player is going to be very happy. Pillar of Amar is a fantastic card, as is Karmic Guardian. The Teriax Hatchling is probably the most playable one. We could consider a Second Sight or a Backlash, perhaps. Yeah, the card draw is just best. Although technically it's card selection rather than card draw, because we do have to put one back. But if we have cards with Echo, that's when you can get into some real shenanigans, such as with this guy. Put him back on top, draw him again, get extra copies, use your safe return, etc, etc, etc. Or if we're going the hard control route, Backlash could be interesting. We haven't got any card draw at all, so I think I'll take this just in case we don't see any Wisdom of the Elders or things like that. Interesting to note that that's a very late fire card to be coming through, but we'll just take the fixing here. There's not much else. Otherwise, I could be convinced to take another 2-drop. Because we are low on 2s. We'll take the fixing first, just in case if there's a bomb, and then we'll keep our eyes open. We have a choice now between Devour and Levitate. Devour is a card that I'm normally always happy to have one of in my deck. It is a form of card draw so long as you have something that you're happy to sacrifice. So for example, if this Eastwind Herald finds itself becoming redundant, it's a useful card. But as it currently is, we don't have a lot of creatures, so I think we'll just take the Levitate. I know that that's obviously something that we're going to work into improving. Not getting fed in this direction at all. Makes me nervous about these colours, but it could be that we're a little bit too late. Out of these, the most playable for me is Spirit Drain. I hope I don't have to play it, but it is the most playable. And we've noticed a few Elysian cards come through. But that being said, Frostkin is still perfectly adequate. And if I've got my second Frostkin, I think we can ditch the Bouncer. Yeah, wow. Let's take this speculatively, we'll see what happens. I don't think it's likely we'll be doing a lot with it, and I think here I'd rather have the 2-drop. We need to make sure that we have our curve covered. Okay. It's quite pretty. They do a good job with these cards, hey? It's interesting how you don't just have one per pack. Oftentimes you'll just get a couple, so I think it just must be a random number for each card individually. Black Iron Manacles, not too interested. Ice Sprite, exceptionally interested. If we'd moved into fire at some stage, Piercing Shot would have been amazing. Or here is the Splashing, but I think we didn't commit hard enough to want to splash yet, so I think we'll just take the Ice Sprite and be happy that we have a piece of removal that's great. Cobalt Monument is exactly the card you want. It's a card that's good early and good late, but I think what I want right now is the card draw. Although I am getting tempted, but I think that's way too greedy. That's just me going, Magical Christmas Land. We could make this deck happen, but instead I think we'll just take our card draw and be happy. And so this is an interesting question between the Horse Snatcher Bat and the Thorn Beast. It is definitely a solidification away from chasing time, but I think I need to be okay with that. So the Horse Snatcher Bat is a powerful creature that's almost impossible to beat in combat. It's efficiently... Well, its stats are slightly under the bar, but it makes up for it with Quick Draw, because with Quick Draw all you really care about is its power rather than its health. It is evasive with flying, so it'll often get in. It does die to Torch, which is important to note. Otherwise, Thorn Beast is also an exceptionally good card. And as it currently stands, I don't think we'll be playing the Dagger. The Gust is dubious, so we'll just leave that out for now. The Hatchling is optimistic. Spirit Drain, I'll be disappointed if I have to play. So as it currently stands, we already have the top end of our curve pretty well represented, and we're really just wanting to make sure that we can play cards out on curve. So even though I think this is of a comparative power level and evasive, and this does require me to get low cost creatures in order to make it useful, I think this is the start of me choosing to prioritize my low cost creatures in my deck. That being said, I'll always take efficient removal. Okay, the minute I say this, I now get a choice whether I want efficient removal or an efficient creature. We also have a creature that gives us card draw, which is nice, and we also have the ability to splash hard, because I think we already have one opportunity to splash into fire. Yeah, this is a really interesting choice. I'm curious. I just want to quickly check these again. It never hurts to defer to other people's experiences. So let's look up Twilight Raptor. They see it again. Solid creature, does its stuff. Yeah, Execute as an A, which I can definitely respect. And they see Blind Storyteller as higher than the Raptor, which I can also respect in certain contexts. So here's the catch-22. I have some amazing removal. I have potentially 2 Executes, an Ice Sprite, an Annihilate, a Death Strike, a Feeding Time, and a very difficult to attack through Steward of Pass, as well as potentially 2-for-1 generating creatures. And in fact, I think the Wyvark gets stronger in my deck for each good piece of removal that I draw. The reason being, ordinarily the catch with the Wyvark is if you're up against something with 3 power and use the killer ability, you can kill it, but it's just a 1-for-1 trade and you don't get the full value. So the sweet spot with this guy is to be hitting them when they have 2/2s or 2/3s. And so you can do the killer ability and still have it as a 3/3 evasive flyer, on the assumption you don't have equipment to beef it up. The more premium removal I get, the more I can save this removal for the fatties, safe in the knowledge that the Wyvark can deal with the small guys, and therefore the more that these will get their premium form of prey. They'll be able to go after all of the bears in the format. This allows me to draw to them. This allows me... Oh, Struth, I just pressed that. Oh, okay. Well, I actually think I would have preferred the Blind Storyteller there. But, fingers. They're fun. Do what I say and not what I do, folks. It's the joy of pressing cards. Okay, we have Fixing that is premium, which tempts me a little bit because I do quite like playing those cards. Or we have a Direfang Spider, which generally trades up. I'm not interested in the Yeti Spy, even though it has a quasi ability to cantrip. You draw a card, it's rare that a 1-cost 1/1 will get in, but a Direfang Spider with Deadly basically sits there and goes, come at me. And oftentimes it will tempt some removal out of your opponent's hands, and as long as they don't have 1/1s, this will stunt an attack, or if you're lucky, sometimes trade in for something good. So I think out of those, it's the go. Herald's Song is the only playable card out of these for me. And now we have the choice between the Vulture, the Pinger, and the Spider. And because we haven't been receiving a lot of love early on, I think we are sitting on the back foot of mid-range, so that makes me want to take the Pinger a lot higher than I was before. Herald Song's an okay piece of card draw. I don't know if I'd ever want more than one Spider. They are vulnerable to things like the Purple Acolyte and to Plague. So let's get in more card draw if we are going defensive. None of these are useful, but that's the card that scares me the most. Backlash is okay if we're going defensive. Let's get rid of some of these. Okay, so Infernal Tyrant is an absolute bomb. Like, top tier, best you can possibly hope for bomb. But it is pack 4, and currently I only have 2 ways of splashing into red. But it does come down really late. I do have card draw, so I think if I'm to build around it, I will be able to afford to splash this in my deck. It is greedy as anything, but these are both okay. Neither of them are amazing for what I'm trying to do, and this is the end game, I think, for my deck. So let's go for it and see what we can make work. What it basically means is if I ever see an opportunity to splash red, I'm taking it pretty much regardless of the quality of the cards that are up against it. Now I have the choice of giving a unit flying or making a unit bigger and giving it a better chance to block, or for having another roadblock. I think we're still a little low on creatures, so I have 1, 2, 3. Okay, we've got a third fire there. That's good news for me. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so I think we need to over-prioritize the creatures right now. This is more aggressively minded, this is more defensively minded. We just want to buy time until we get this Infernal Tyrant down, so let's go for this. Gorgon Swiftblade is an interesting creature. Obviously it wants to be on attack, but if your opponent stumbles, then you have a deadly and quick draw creature, and otherwise it's above the curve. If someone plays a straight up bear, they play a stranger, and I play the Swiftblade with the extra point of toughness, I've stopped them, at least for a turn, so I'm happy seeing the Swiftblade. Chieftain is a nice card in a certain archetype, but ours is not that archetype, so instead we'll take the Acolyte. And I think here I have the choice between the Seek Power and the Ricano Stranger. Because I still feel a little short on creatures. Actually, maybe the Seek Power is better. It gives me all the versatility I need. Because I'm still going to need both double Shadow as well as double Primal. Yeah, okay, let's go for Seeking Power. And Wisdom of the Elders is great news for us. Out of these, Second Sight and Herald's Song, I think I'd rather the Second Sight. And none of these really help us. We're not going to be playing the Arachnodon, so let's just get rid of the Bold Adventurer. How's our curve looking? So we have a 6-drop, we have 2 5s, a bunch of 4s. How many 2s and 3s? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We are a little short low on our curve. Whilst I think the Jotun Warrior fits our game plan better, if we don't get there. Although we also have the removal to help out. So the two things I'm thinking through is Infernal Tyrant's going to win us the game. If he manages to survive, we wish we could have gotten a Dark Return. That would have been really nice. But he's going to win us the game. So long as we stay alive to be able to cast this for 6. So these are two cards where we go, well, which one helps us stay alive better? Is it the guy with more health? Or is it the person who I can play earlier so that my hand hopefully curves out better? I think we need to pick this based on curve considerations. Yeah, so this has been interesting. I just want to make sure that there's no useful cards that I've cut out. And then we'll go into the build. But yeah, I think we it's not a good card, but we don't have a lot of life gain. I think we have an interesting Feln control deck. Because we definitely want to be getting to 6, I think we're either looking at 18 or 19 sigils, plus a Seek Power. You can get out of here, Aractodon, I'm not playing you. So, I probably want at least 2 fire sigils to draw to. What that means is if I have 1 in hand and a Seek Power, I know I can have it covered. And so we now have 11, 20, so I can afford to go down here. So 10, 18, 20. So here's our catch, as you can see up the top here for our influence breakdown, is we are dominant blue. We're dominant blue all the way through the early game, but we still need access. I don't think we're going to be playing the dagger, but we still need access to our purple for some of these Feln cards early. But then the top end that we really want to make sure we can play is a stretch of a splash, but the power level here is worth it. I just want to make sure I can play this guy in my deck. Let's just start to cut through, see what we don't need. We've definitely got way too many of these, especially since I was lucky enough to get my second Wisdom in the Elders. I think I can cut down on these subprime card draw. Herald Song has the possibility of being actual card draw, the other one doesn't, so I think I'd rather have that. Backlash is a little bit too conditional for me. If you disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments. Spirit Drain I don't like. I don't think it does enough at that cost. And it looks like we've got a couple too many 4s. I don't think I necessarily want to play this Jotun Warrior. I think I've got enough in my top end. That could be wrong. Back Alley Bounce is definitely too weak in the 4s. Ravenous Thornbeast isn't at its best in this deck, but it's still efficiently costed. For the Acolyte, this can be useful. If we're up against a Flyers deck, I have a couple of early Flyers, but the ability to say, cast my Infernal Tyrant, stabilize the board, draw a Cobalt Acolyte, and watch him fly in is pretty sweet. So all of these I want to keep. The Herald I want to keep because I just don't have enough that works well early. Perhaps the Violent Gust is a card I can drop. Yeah, I think so. They're great. I have 8, 16, 17, 19. Perhaps 18 is the number here. It's not as though we're going up to 8s. And I also have the Seek Power. Yeah, I could be convinced that's right. Even though we're much more dominant primal, I don't want to be going 8-6 here. Or perhaps I do, because the Stone Scar banner only works for it, so it'll be an 8-7 split. Okay, I need to make sure that I have a lot of primal, because by turn 3 I'd like to ideally be casting Wisdom. 2 more cuts. This is generally the most arduous part of... Geez, I wish I had that card draw guy now. I didn't misclick for this extra piece of removal. This is generally the most arduous part of the process. Perhaps we can drop 1 Herald Song. Can sometimes be card advantage when I flood, and that is a game plan for helping me out when I flood, but I don't think I mind flooding too much. I definitely am happier flooding than I am being screwed. This is the deck where if I don't get my power, I'm in serious trouble. So, if given my choice between the two, my priorities is definitely to over-prioritize the benefit for being screwed by having these cheap guys. Whilst the Warrior can fit into a plan, I think it's one of the cards that has to go. And yeah, maybe we just need to pare down on the song. What do you reckon, guys? Does that look right? And this is kind of one of the occasions where I do wish I was streaming so I could get the feedback straight away. Seven, 8, 16, 18. Yep, so that's right. We have a cantrip, we have some card draw, so that should help us out. Yeah, okay, let's give this a shot. I think this is where we want to head. I'm not the most experienced control player. I definitely tend to be on the aggressive end of the spectrum, but that looks right to me. Is there anything that we wish we could have had? I definitely wish I could have had a Dark Return or two. That would have really helped out. But as is, there's my Feln control deck. Thanks for watching, guys, so far, and I hope to see you in the next video, where we get to put it through its routine and see how well it holds up. I've been Kozzi, drafting for Pick 1 Pack 1. Thank you as always for watching so far, and I'll see you soon.